vocalizations of quiet.
This foot was measured as 14 and a half, but that's a rather conservative measure. 14.8 would be better. This one, from the very tip of the toe to the back, is fully 15 inches in length. This is one of my photos of Bob Titmus's, one of his original 10 casts made at the film site. Even more than some of the others, this one really shows the toes extended very nicely, and so the congruence is even more marked. I mean, even aspects like you can see the prominence of the head and the base of the metatarsal there, which show up on the inner part of that cast quite well.
Let's talk more about the Patterson-Gimlin film. One of the things that has been roles in which it has played a significant part is the characterization of the Sasquatch feet. And based on the type specimens, and I selected 4 of the type specimens, the right and left casts of for the Patterson-Gimlin film site, cast by Roger. That constitutes the type specimen with the holotype, including the referred material that was cast by Bob Titmus 10 days later, where he cast 10 tracks in succession. So adding to that, with the benefit that we have an image of the track maker. On that basis, borrowing the system of taxonomy, which is a classification system that's based on traces, tracks and traces of usually fossil animals, but an exception, and a willing exception, was granted by the ichnological community. I presented at the New Mexico Museum of Natural History, where it was reviewed by 5 reviewers and was published. So there is a handle on the feet. But more important than anything, than the recognition of a name, what's in a name, it's the diagnosis. It codified a diagnosis of the distinguishing characteristics that set apart the Sasquatch tracks from other hominid tracks and humans. So there's the referred specimens, including this really remarkable one that those who've been out the table have seen, that shows this remarkable pressure ridge, which is evident to some degree in some of these others, but it's just very dramatically portrayed and preserved in this example. Here's a 3D scan of that. It shows this pressure ridge. Now, you got to remember, a footprint is not like a static mold of a foot. It's not a snapshot, but it's a composite of a period of time through which the footfall has occurred, through which the step has occurred. And so you got to think of that as a dynamic feature, a secondary feature, not something you would see apparent on the foot itself, other than in the quality of that mid-tarsal break. And by break, we mean flexion. We just need an axis of flexion, not a damage or an injury. Okay, make that very clear. A lot of people keep getting that mistake. So there's that bridge. Now, my interpretation of that is this. Here's the striking contrast between the function of the two. The human foot is characterized by a longitudinal arch, a very recent innovation. So recent, in fact, that some human feet actually still behave like this, as was pointed out by an individual who tried to, on that basis, suggest that my interpretation of the early hominid tracks that showed pressure ridges wasn't that distinct, wasn't that significant. He symposium was held on Cenozoic tracks and traces and proposed this new taxonomic term, Anthropoides of Borealis, which simply translates as the North American 8-foot, in 2007. And then that manuscript went out for review.
To show in motion now this heel movement here. You can see the mid-tarsal break. I mean, you can see this dynamic happening in the film itself. This is not a stiff foot. This is not a floppy Kmart slipper. This is an animate foot. Only this time, instead of looking at the mid-tarsal break back here, look at the toes. They're dorsiflexed just as you would expect them to be at the latter part of the swing phase, and look how long they are. And those long toes are what is really interesting, because, again, for a long time, the gold standard interpretation of the Bluff Creek tracks were peas in a pod, short, stubby toes. This is a foot that has an elongated heel that gives this unusual appearance that has caused so much consternation in the film. It has a flat, flexible sole and foot skeleton combined with relatively longer toes than we see in a human foot, which allows this animal to retain that, at least a degree of prehension. But it's taken that trend that we saw from chimp to mountain gorilla to a little bit further extreme, to where the lack of divergence is more marked in the big toe. But the toes are still quite long and capable of a fair amount of prehension. An elegant adaptation for a biped adapted to broken, uneven, steep, mountainous environments, as opposed to hominids that have evolved to open, mosaic woodland and then eventually savanna habitats, in which they became more and more reliant on endurance walking and, more importantly, running in the pursuit of their game as a hunting strategy, I suspect. Thank you very much for your attention.